Welcome to the behind the scenes of the redesigning the mermaid themed dress. I added a photo of inspiration that I took in January that captures some of the colors. I started by removing the lower portion of the skirt, and I used this as my pattern. This actually took a while of unsewing, but that just means it's time to watch one of my favorite movies. I then cut a chiffon layer and an organza layer. Each layer had to be wider and longer than the satin layer. I wanted to use a shimmery iridescent fabric that complemented the oyster color of the satin. This fabric is beautiful and it just picks up the light, which is why I chose it. My ever-watchful recreational director made sure I was efficiently working. I then began sewing by machine each layer. Once I sewed the layers to the satin, I was able to start attaching them to the dress. I had to carefully cut away and hand drape where the layers started. The process was tedious, but the time spent was worth it as the layers transitioned beautifully. I then mixed several colors of textile paints and airbrushed each layer. Airbrushing is a lot of fun, and I have found less is more. I wanted to create a textured design panel that ties in ocean elements, so I melted the edges of this iridescent organza fabric with a solder iron. The process was beyond stinky, so I opened a window to help ventilate the fumes, and burning my fingers was not an option at this point. I then hand beaded large and small sequins, crystals, and a few faux pearls with invisible thread. The process actually took longer than I expected. Working with invisible thread can be frustrating. The important thing to remember is to go slow. Echo decided that I had worked for long enough and that I needed a hiking break to refresh and forest bathe. So we headed up to one of our favorite spots in Evergreen, Colorado. It was time to start finishing the hem on the skirt. The blue colors really turned out stunning, and I was getting more excited with each finished seam. At this point, I was hoping each step would actually create the vision that I was seeing in my brain. A lot of times, designers, we have this idea, but to actually execute it and see it is one thing. Sometimes it doesn't turn out the way you expect, but so far so good. It was time to press the hem. This important step not only gives a professional finish, but it also helps set the textile paints. Right now I'm thinking I can't wait for you to see the next step. I wanted to hand paint some lace appliques, so I began diluting the textile paints. I began by testing and diluting the colors down until I was happy with the results. This was actually the first time that I had used textile paints to color the lace because I normally use Rit dye. I wanted to tie in the colors of the iridescent fabrics that shimmered that I was using to create the gown. Watch as I use a turquoise paint and a magenta to create the iridescent colors that go from lavender to soft pink to a green blue. I find painting lace is fun and very cathartic. I could literally do this all day. It's very relaxing and almost hypnotizing to do this process. This is one of my favorite processes when creating any type of custom dress. After I'm done painting, I let the lace dry for at least 2 hours. One of my happy tree friends decided to pop in to check on me. While the lace is drying, I decided to work on adding the layers back into the dress. I began by adding the texture panel that I created and draped it first. This process is fun and creates a subtle amount of added volume for a little more drama. I wanted to create a floaty movement and add more volume to the mermaid silhouette. The colors and texture are starting to really look like the shimmery glow that I was going for. Remember that hand-painted lace? It's now ready. I begin adding iridescent sequins, a few faux pearls, and some iridescent crystals to the lace. Watch the super exciting part as I try to untangle my invisible thread. Ready to add the beautiful lace appliques to the dress. I hand sew the lace onto the drape portions of the dress. Adding the lace really helps tie in the transition of fabrics and colors of the dress. I think the lace turned out beautiful and the colors are very vivid. I'm so close to finishing this up. I'm really happy, but there's one detail I can't figure out what to do. It's been nagging at me the entire time I've been working on the dress. I finally had an idea while I was sewing the appliques to the dress. The dress has covered satin buttons, but they didn't go well with the overall theme, and this was an important design detail to finalize. I decided to replace the covered buttons with iridescent beads that reminded me of sea glass. It's finally finished. I can close it up. Let's check it out and see how the final look is. Well, I'm partial, but I think it turned out beautiful, and it's now an art piece. Colors really came together, and to me it looks shimmery like a glow from the lower portion that fades into a modern-looking, glamorous dress. This one-of-a-kind dress is available in my Etsy shop. It's a size 12 and ready to ship. Let me know what you think of the Mermaid Redesign wedding dress in the comments below. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching my first video on my YouTube channel. Goodbye!